Hello, this is Colin Murray with Executive Director with Dane Buy Local. If you are watching right now, we are about 12 minutes from when the actual program will begin. So you may want to just jump ahead in the timeline so that you're not watching basically nothing, watching me read emails, whatever the case might be. We'll be starting in about 12 minutes with our artificial intelligence lunch and learn for today with Dane Buy Local. Thanks, everyone. So, Gabriel, hello, it's Colin with Dane Buy Local. How are you? Hope you're muted. So you're still muted.
I was going to go grab something to eat really quick too.
Go ahead. Fine, no problem. We'll start in about 8 minutes.
Okay. All right. You're not hosting though, right? Are you hosting?
Yeah. I'm not presenting, but I'm the host. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Terrific. All right. I'll be back in a minute.
All right. Thanks. Hello, Megan. Hello, Karen.
Colin, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Megan. And here comes Lenica with her name change.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me, Colin?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. We lost our internet at our house, so I had to come to a coffee shop.
Uh-oh.
Hello. Oh.
Hi.
We were up to about 41 people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good to hear. Some of those signed up because they want the recording, but that's okay. Comes Sam. Hello, Sam. How you doing?
Hi, Colin. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. That was a very official headshot you had there.
Yeah, I tried. I don't know. I feel like it's my old headshot from when Zoom like first became a thing. And now I don't really understand how to change the headshot. So I'm just kind of in this weird, like post-COVID Zoom limbo. But yeah, that's probably more information than you needed on like the state of my Zoom headshot. But you know, there it is.
I totally feel you. Mine are dogs and I can't get rid of them.
I'm like, how do I make it not this way?
I would
Right.
think it'd be, yeah, I've never tried doing it, but yeah, you would think it would be simple enough.
Uh-huh.
And hello, Doug.
Hey, everybody.
And hello, Cassidy. So Sam Lenica just mentioned to me that we've got, what'd you say, 41 people that registered. Some of those have signed up because they want to receive the recording. They can't join us now, but they want to receive
Okay.
the recording, which I already have going. But we're going to have a full house today for sure. But I do have to stay right on time today. So we'll start right at noon and
Okay.
we're wrapped up a couple minutes before 1 o'clock. So
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm anticipating being right around the 40-minute mark and then opening up for questions on the other side of that. And if we end early, then you know, folks can enjoy the rest of their lunch hour, or maybe like decompress. I'm gonna try not like overload, but yeah, you know, I am trying to be mindful that it is lunch hour. So yeah.
Great. Evelina, could you look up the discount code for buy one, get one for the next bus tour? And why don't you put it in the comments for everyone? So hello, Kathy.
Hello, how is everybody?
Glad you're able to join us.
Thank you.
We're going to start in about 3 minutes here, so just hang out for a couple minutes. I can't really tell if it's sunny out, cloudy out, or if that's the haze from the fires up north. Anyone got a better, clearer view than I do?
I just wake up and I think it's, well, I know that there were fires previously. I am assuming it is still fires, but at least where I am, we got some rain. So I don't think that that necessarily answers your question in like an easy way, but all of the above, maybe.
Maybe. So, hello, Rebecca. You are muted.
Let's try that again. Hey, Colin,
How
what
you
do
doing?
you know about this?
Rebecca is probably traveling the farthest of anyone today. Yeah, you want to tell them where you're at?
I am in the Ozarks in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
So she's beaming in with us today, so glad to have you.
One of the many benefits of Zoom is I can be there with you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We're just going to give it another minute or so here and we'll get started. So we were just talking about, Rebecca, we have firestorms up in Canada and the wind is blowing it down into Wisconsin here. So we're kind of being, sometimes it's sunny and sometimes it isn't. And I can't really see out my window too clearly right at the moment. The blinds aren't adjusted right, but it seems like it's kind of hazy out there, from what I can tell. So
So do you get a lot of smoke or just haze?
from what I've noticed, it's just been haze. And every once in a while, I'll catch a little like burnt smell, but not,
Mhm.
it's not obnoxious. Let's try to get everybody in here.
It's enough that our household has gone through an entire inhaler.
Oh,
Oh, dear. That doesn't sound good.
yeah. Try to get everybody in here. All right. So we're going to begin here. I'm Colin Murray, Executive Director with Dane Buy Local. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're able to join us today. Just a quick announcement. We have the next bus tour that will be taking place on June 20th from 4 to 8 p.m. If you haven't heard about this, or if you haven't joined us on one of the bus trips in the past, check this out. So each month through November, we're coordinating a bus tour, and each bus tour is themed. So this one, since it's Pride Month, we're going to be visiting LGBT owned businesses in the Madison area. So we've got 6 different businesses that are lined up. The bus will start from Delta Beer Lab, go around, take about 4 hours to get to the 6 locations. They'll give you a tour, give you a little explanation about their business. You can do a little shopping while you're there, depending upon the business, and then come back to Delta Beer Lab, and they will have refreshments for you in the form of alcohol or non-alcohol, and sweets, desserts as well. And I've heard good response about the desserts that they're offering. So all part of the package deal. It's $49 for the entire package. You get a goodie bag at the beginning, transportation. It's luxury transportation. Let me tell you, it's a really nice, they call it a bus, but it's really more than a bus. So you're moving around in luxury there. And right now we've got a special offer. I think Lenica put the code up in the comments section there. If you sign up for attending, you can bring a friend for free. So it's buy one, get one right now. So $49 for 2 people. Use the code and join us for the next one. If you're not able to join us for that one, but you're interested in one of the future ones, go on our website. All the information is there with the dates and the category of businesses that we'll be seeing for each of those tours. So we've had rave reviews on the ones that we've done so far. So make sure to take advantage of that, join us, and support local. That's what it's all about, right? So, all right. So without further ado, we will get to our main presentation here. Whoops, hold on a second, trying to get everybody in. We've got Sam Leary from Marketing with us today, one of our members of Dane Buy Local. And I reached out to Sam to talk about AI, or artificial intelligence. I know some of you are vaguely familiar with it, or have used it a little bit. Others may be, what the heck are you talking about? So Sam's going to get us up to date on all of this. I really feel like this is what we were doing 15 years or so ago with social media when it comes to Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all the others that are out there. It's like, I know there's something here, I just don't know quite how it all fits into my business. And that's where we're at probably right now with AI. And I've been using it quite a bit. I've got a bunch of questions, but I've found it to be incredible on what we've been able to experience so far. So with that, Sam, I will let you take it from there.
Great, great. Yeah, thanks so much for that, Colin. And I totally agree, you know, where we are right now, you know, I think we've seen it before with similar technologies, social media being one. And as I'll mention in the presentation, HTML and CSS being another. So got to stay on track. I don't want to get, you know, sidetracked in the beginning, but I just want to create space to thank the entire Dane by Local team for helping to put this together, Colin specifically for reaching out, and everybody for being here and supporting local. I think it's really important. So I will share my screen. Let's see here. Okay. Can everybody see that? All right. Perfect. All right. Getting some head nods. That means we are good to go. So, all right. Really, I'm starting this presentation with a quote that I want to highlight. So this is from Larry Page, who's the co-founder of Google. It was said in 2019, and I think it's important historical context for giving you an idea of where I think we are now with this technology. So I'll start by reading the quote. So AI would be the ultimate version of Google, the ultimate search engine that would understand everything on the web. It would understand exactly what you wanted, and it would give you the right thing. We're nowhere near doing that now. However, we can get incrementally closer to that. And that is basically what we work on. So today we're talking about how AI can make businesses and nonprofits more efficient, or if you're just one single person and a creative, how it can make you more efficient. So we're specifically going to be talking about ChatGPT, spending a lot of time discussing that, although I'll mention a few other technologies because really, I think that's kind of what most people are talking about these days, at least in my experience. So this quote, this is the direction that I really see AI moving. The internet is becoming an increasingly more accessible place, and this is one of the fundamental utilities of popular AI tools like ChatGPT, which I'll be saying more about shortly. Let's see. Before that, though, I'm going to share a little bit about me. So I'm a passionate Wisconsinite. I graduated from UW-Madison in 2019. I was born and raised in the Fox Valley area. I earned my master's degree from Johns Hopkins University in 2021, where I taught undergraduate creative writing courses and digital media courses. So that's really where I started getting a working understanding of artificial intelligence and machine learning and the trajectory of the technology. So now I'm using my education to work at what I call the intersection of communications and cutting edge technology, really. So fast forward to now, I'm a small business owner, Marketing Media. My co-owner is here on the call with me, Ashley. Cassidy is here as well. So yeah, we're a small team located on the near west side. We use data-driven digital strategies to generate ROI for businesses and nonprofits. And really that encompasses like custom strategies, consulting packages, and management packages. So at the bottom of this slide are all of the organizations that we are a part of, that we support. As you can see, Wisconsin focused, Dane County focused. So again, we love local. I'll add before I move on that if we could save questions until the end, that would be great. However, if you want to type something out in chat, there are folks from Marketing, as I mentioned here before, who can answer some of your questions. So kind of trying to navigate that space as best we can because there's a lot to discuss. All right. So first up's the agenda. We'll just cover this briefly. So I'm going to start with making an important distinction between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and ChatGPT. This is complicated material, and I think the best way that you can leverage the technology to be more efficient starts with understanding the distinctions. So once we get an idea of that breakdown, we'll talk about an introduction to artificial intelligence that is focused on ChatGPT. So from there, we're going to explore the historical and present context that surrounds why ChatGPT is so popular, because there are a lot of reasons. And then we're going to get into security concerns, which I think are, kind of, even if they're not, top of mind, it's always kind of floating around up there. Is like, what am I getting myself into anytime I use any product that was made by big tech? So we'll talk about that. I've broken things down into 4 pillars that are hopefully pretty digestible. And then we're going to dig into the more nitty-gritty tips for nonprofits and businesses. So there's a lot of overlap there because, there are obviously similarities, but anybody who has worked in either space knows that, there are distinctions. So on the nonprofit end, we've prepared things so that they are, you can get an idea of how lightweight teams can leverage the technology for efficiencies, as well as maybe larger teams on the other side with, a more business focused approach, let's say. So beyond that, we're going to talk about how AI chatbots or large language models create efficiencies or create opportunities for efficiencies. And I'll be discussing really how you can use ChatGPT in a step-by-step manner to get things done. And I'm also going to be making some recommendations for Google Bard, Bing, and then OpenAI technologies. So hopefully I haven't lost you to this point, because we are just getting into it, and we'll wrap it all up by discussing some prompts in action that are going to vary from most complex to, I don't want to say least complex necessarily, but maybe least fun to most fun. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. So that's the agenda for today. I am hoping, fingers crossed, to get everybody out of here early so that we can all enjoy whatever time is left on the other side of this for our lunch breaks. So let's see. First and foremost, we're starting with important distinctions. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, these are fields that people dedicate their entire lives to studying and to understanding. So I am not trying to take you from 0 to PhD. I'm trying to take you from, wherever you might be. I'm just trying to deliver you to a better place where you can use this technology to be more efficient in your professional life as well as your personal. So starting with artificial intelligence. So what is AI? AI simulates human intelligence in machines to learn and solve problems. Think about AI as the all-encompassing umbrella term. So it encompasses all forms of machine intelligence, including machine learning and language models like ChatGPT. So again, if you understand one thing about artificial intelligence, understand it as an umbrella term that encompasses what we're going to be discussing. Okay, so pushing a little bit deeper, machine learning. Machine learning is an AI subset that uses algorithms to analyze data, learn from it, and then make predictions. So we're all familiar in one way or another, in some capacity, with what an algorithm is or what an algorithm does. So machine learning, an easy example is if you're on, say, Netflix, and Netflix is giving you recommendations, okay, that's machine learning that's happening in the background based on movies that you've watched or shows that you've watched in the past. So machine learning focuses on data-driven learning and predictions, which differentiates from general artificial intelligence and specialized models like ChatGPT. So this is kind of as complex as it'll get. I'm trying to keep us out of the weeds for the most part, because one of the great things about this technology is that you don't have to have an in-depth understanding of all of the intricacies that go into making it work. a surface level understanding can take you a long way with this. So let's talk about ChatGPT now. So ChatGPT is a language model that was developed by OpenAI and generates human-like text. So unlike general artificial intelligence or machine learning, ChatGPT specifically focuses on understanding and generating human-like text based on its training data. So ChatGPT is text in, text out. So you will write a prompt that is text and it will push text out on the other side. And that's based on training data. I won't get into the weeds there too much as to in terms of how they trained it and with what data, because there's, again, a lot of technology that goes into that. But really what it is, you put text in, it will analyze your answer and give you a response with text, which differs from other technologies where it may be you could type text in and you could get an image out or a video out. So there is kind of a spread. The last thing I'll say is, a bit of a pro tip here to hopefully kind of help you wrap your mind around ChatGPT a little more. So ChatGPT, where does the name come from? What does GPT even mean? I can kind of conceptualize the chat, but it refers to, obviously, the chatbot functionality. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is a type of large language model. So Generative Pre-trained Transformer, it transforms text inputs to text outputs. It was trained on data to, basically be able to do that. And, that's effectively, where the name comes from. So let's push forward. So now on to an introduction to artificial intelligence with ChatGPT. So at this point, we've heard about it, we've seen it, maybe you've used it, all of the above, somewhere in between. What is it really? It is a transformative tool that can improve efficiency and productivity, both personally and professionally. And it does this by, I'd really like to draw your attention to the text that's on the lower half of this screen. So there's some blue, there's some pink, there's some purple. What does it mean? So what this is the structure that I recommend you use when engaging with a chatbot, specifically ChatGPT. So essentially there are three parts. There is the action, there's the framework, and there's the specification. So typically when we think about language, we think, nouns, noun phrases, verbs, verb phrases, etc. When we're talking about interfacing with computer technology, we need to kind of think about it a little differently. So these three parts, there's the action. The action directs and contextualizes the chatbot's response. So in this case, the action is write. We're telling the chatbot, specifically ChatGPT, to write something. From there, we move to the framework. The framework offers the chatbot a familiar structure to use during iteration, basically when it produces a response for you. So write a blog post intro paragraph. So this is a structure that the chatbot can likely imitate. Beyond that, we have specifications. So you can imagine without the text in pink, what would we have? We would have a prompt that says, write a blog post intro paragraph. Okay, well, that could be anything. I need something specific. I need to be efficient. So in this case, it's the benefits of organic vegetables versus non-organic vegetables. And really, the specifications are additional details to personalize and guide the outputs of the chatbots so that you get exactly what you want. And we'll explore this in more detail when we discuss examples, but these are three components that ensure you'll get the most out of the time that you spend interfacing with a chatbot like ChatGPT, making sure that you have some structure in place to best communicate with the computer that's across the desk for you. So segmenting your prompts in this manner will basically just help you learn faster, get the most out of it. Okay. So now, and this is what I mentioned previously, Colin made the point of feeling like we're kind of in a place with AI technology that we were previously with social media. So I mentioned HTML, CSS. I want to draw everybody's attention to Mark Cuban. This tweet he published, I think it was shortly after the technology went live, but I'll read it quickly and then we'll discuss the numbers and why it's so popular. So, introduction of ChatGPT is so similar to HTML and the internet early days, he wrote. Everyone knew it would be impactful, but we made it seem far more complicated than it was. Any kid that learned HTML and built websites for businesses was considered a tech genius. It's the same with using ChatGPT large language models. It will go from being perceived as difficult to being recognized as being fundamental and used by everyone. It's easy to try and experiment with. If you haven't, you should. Okay, so that is the idea that I'm trying to contextualize this technology's popularity with. And the popularity is nothing to brush off. December 2023, first I'll say this was the fastest application to reach 1 million monthly users. It did it in 5 days, I think, which, if I'm remembering correctly, it took Instagram something like 2 months. And we now, at Facebook, it was even longer, and we now celebrate those technologies. Those technologies are incredibly popular today. So ChatGPT is blowing everything out of the water. And if we look at the numbers as they've changed over the past 5 or 6 months, we see that in April 2023, it did almost 2 billion monthly users, which is a huge number, obviously. So why is this happening? Why is it so popular? There are innumerable reasons why. I could dedicate an entire presentation to talking about why these are so popular, but I've really tried to break it down. So 24/7 availability, there's cost efficiencies, and there are plugins and integrations that are benefiting businesses and nonprofits all across the spectrum. So where I'm going to start is this idea of 24/7 availability, the idea of, having something around the clock. I really want the business owners in the room, the decision makers, the people, the folks who are interested in, working their way up the leadership hierarchy at their organization to understand AI chatbots as virtual assistants, supporting staff for you that you can never annoy, that you can never burn out, that you can, never put too much pressure on. They're available round the clock whenever you're there, basically, to type your response out. And so that's a big help because, almost 2 billion people are going to it for some reason around the clock. So there's that 24/7 availability. There's also cost efficiencies. So there, specifically with ChatGPT, and this is why I chose to talk about this program as opposed to, another. ChatGPT offers both free and paid. There are benefits to the paid. Full transparency, I'm a paid subscriber myself. It's $20 a month, and the way I communicate it is basically like, you'd be hard pressed to find that virtual assistant that could work for you for a month at a time for $20. So that's the way I rationalize that cost. But free version and subscription based, there's high volume of tasks that offer scalability. So sometimes I'll take 20 minutes to write out a prompt, and I know it'll take 5 to 10 minutes to run, and I can stand up from my desk and walk away and do something else for my business while this is running in the background. So there are different ways to automate tasks, and we'll talk more about that in the example section. But there is a trade-off both in the time that it can save you as well as energy and money. So last but not least, in terms of why I see this being such a popular technology is because of plugins and different integrations. In 2019, and I'll talk about this as the presentation goes on, in 2019, it was predicted that 80% of new technologies, new platforms that were released in 2021 would basically have built-in functionalities that were prepared for AI integrations. So there are moving the pieces have been moving for a very long time. The tech companies know we're moving toward a place where artificial intelligence plays a bigger role in facilitating user engagement online. And the technology has been there, has been waiting. And we'll talk about what plugins are and how they help shortly. But basically, ChatGPT is a jumping off point for, helping you interface with different websites, from businesses like Zapier, which helps with Google Docs and Google Sheets, to Expedia, which will help you book a trip using artificial intelligence. So in a nutshell, that's why it's so popular now. But let's move on. Security concerns. This is important. We don't want anybody being unsafe when they are using these technologies. This is like a very valid, understandable concern to have. So we'll talk security concerns right now. These are, security concerns are really the most popular questions I get when I'm talking with folks about artificial intelligence, whether it's in a professional environment or if I'm like, talking a stranger's ear off on the street. Security is always kind of a pressing issue. So one of my goals today is to help you mitigate risks while maximizing the benefits. So the 4 pillars that I've outlined are privacy, misinformation, bias amplification, and the idea that these chatbots are kind of like black boxes that we don't really understand how answers come out of them or what's all going into them. So we'll start with privacy. So I've outlined phishing, malware or malicious code, and then kind of your usual tech problems. So in the context of AI applications, an AI-powered chatbot could be manipulated into phishing users by presenting either deceptive prompts or links. It certainly makes the distribution of like phishing via email easier if you leverage AI technology. So malware is also something similar where it could potentially compromise a system, but importantly, there are back-end securities on these technologies that are put in place to prevent those sort of direct breaches of security. So you can rest assured that, in using a technology like ChatGPT, there isn't somebody who is going to be on the other end, a real human who is manipulating you in real time. That's not the case. And then there's like the usual tech problems that I want to highlight. I really recommend folks use the input field in ChatGPT the same way that they would use a Google search bar. Don't put your social security number in a Google search bar and hit enter. Don't put your credit cards there. Don't put personal information that you don't feel comfortable sharing. If you're trying to do business, I recommend using metaphors or analogies whenever possible instead of specificities, or kind of broad stroke industry descriptions whenever possible. So there are ways to kind of work around, breaching security or oversharing, let's say. So next up is the topic of misinformation. So, never copy and paste. I'll say this again as we go on, never copy, paste, and send. You always want to be the human filter between AI, produced outputs and, the real human world, so to speak, because chatbots are trained on outdated information. They're trained, ChatGPT, for example, was trained on pre-2021 data points. So, while it's great for some things, it is not so great at answering other questions. So, and it can also echo unverified claims. Unverified claims are, if you communicate to the chatbot that something is true, most of the time it will treat it as though it were true. So you get into like this echo chamber that is kind of playing out in real time. So you always want to be mindful of the fact that unverified claims can kind of seep into the prompts that you're engineering in different ways. So always trying to be mindful of that, as well as, falsehood propagation, which is really something similar about the ways in which that we as human users who are interfacing with technology, kind of set ourselves up to be, basically in an echo chamber where, we intuit or suggest that something is true, and then the model tells us it is true. Bias amplification, there's data bias, there's interaction bias, there's confirmation bias. you know, I think folks generally speaking are understand what confirmation bias is, but data bias, on the other hand, is when data is used to train a machine learning model and it's not representative of the reality or the context that it's supposed to reflect. This gets us into kind of the idea of these chatbots as a form, as like a black box where we don't really understand how answers are coming out of them. We don't know what information they were trained on. And that lends itself to, you know, having questions about, well, how can they answer this? Is it valid? Are they factually true? So we can't really say how the outputs are arrived at in a way that is comprehensible or easily understandable, short of actually understanding the technology, which is time consuming and something people dedicate their whole lives to. And if I had an unlimited amount of time, we could dive into that. But, you know, how the technology is trained, most folks don't have access to it, and it takes a long time to understand. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully this puts some of your security concerns at bay. You know, the closing thought that I'll leave you with is, again, interact with that input field as you would, you know, a Google search bar. So just be mindful of that. Now we get into the nitty gritty of it, tips for nonprofits. So these are, again, there are an infinite number of ways that you could use these tools to in a nonprofit environment to help your cause. I've outlined and also linked an article, or I'm sorry, this is a Twitter thread, 45 plugins to enhance productivity. Everything from Slack to Zapier, Expedia, Wolfram Alpha. So there's a ton of different ways that AI is being used to make these technologies easier. I want to start by talking about general use cases. And really there's iteration, clarity, coherence, and accessibility checks, and content strategy. So iteration from like, you know, a micro, or I'll take the macro approach. From a macro approach, developing standard operating procedures for daily tasks at your nonprofit. So in terms of, you know, sales and marketing, which I'll talk about shortly, you know, what are the daily activities that get done around the office in terms of distribution that we could be streamlining by leveraging this text-to-text technology? Beyond that, clarity, coherence, and accessibility checks. So spell checking, the game of, you know, grammar checking, spell checking has changed because we can now check for abstract concepts like accessibility instead of strictly, you know, grammatical, you know, instead of grammar, instead of spelling. We can kind of go beyond that, make sure, okay, is what I'm about to put out accessible, readable to a wide range of audience, which is becoming increasingly important. There's also a content strategy element for both short and long-term planning a marketing plan, you know, getting that first iteration. Like I said before, I never recommend copy, paste, send, but using these technologies as an iterative tool to get your first or second drafts completed as quickly as possible. That'll save you time, energy, and money. Grant writing assistance, drafting, writing, and revising, then researching and data integrations, figuring out how, you know, if you're the person who's responsible for applying for a grant, you know, getting all of the relevant pieces of data that you can scrape on the internet to support why you're deserving of the grant. This is one of the ways that people will increasingly be using the technology. And I think by kind of tinkering with it now, you can better position yourself to be an early adopter. And then alignment with requirements, you know, that final check before it goes out. Are we in? Does the grant fulfill, you know, the requirements that were outlined previously? So that's one of the ways that, you know, we can figure out how to get more money to nonprofits. In terms of sales and marketing, listen, I own a digital marketing agency. Marketing can be a big headache. Sales is a business in its own right. But this technology is great for both of those, whether it's a press release that you want to develop. You know, I really recommend, you know, on one screen, have your press release template, on another screen, you know, have your chatbot open, generate that press release, copy paste it, put it in the template, rework it as necessary, again, being that human filter, and then figure out how you can make the press release, a blog post, the blog post, a maybe it's a series of LinkedIn posts, and kind of figuring out that cascade by in terms of content by leveraging artificial intelligence. So I kind of already touched on social media. Predictive analytics is another great thing. If you know your numbers, Google Analytics is a great way. Also, all these social media platforms have built-in analytics software. If you know your numbers, you can leverage AI to basically give you predictive analytics on a quarterly basis, semi-annual, annual basis. There's a ton of ways it can benefit nonprofits, but in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at. So now moving on to tips for businesses. So again, there's a ton of overlap inevitably, but the spaces are different. Nonprofits, typically teams are more lightweight. Businesses may have more resources, but not always. So internal operations, sales and marketing, training and onboarding. Let's talk through those. So automating customer support. This is a little bit more technical, but leveraging ChatGPT to basically have your business's own personal chatbot on your website that's been trained off of information that is relevant to your company, so that any question under the sun that can be conceived of, some answer can be bounced back to a user. That's technology that is available and is being increasingly used. Enhancing internal communications. This is a big one in terms of, like I mentioned, a virtual assistant for your workforce. Basically giving your team, be they managers, be they supporting staff, a go-between between leadership and their position. There's kind of a gray space where if you can create space for your team to interface with virtual assistants, they might be able to save everybody a little time based on the questions that they're bringing to management, or get more qualified questions, let's say. So sales and marketing, I've kind of touched on this already. There's content generation, there's sales forecasting with predictive analytics. Email marketing is a big one. This is a 36 to 1 is the average return on investment for dollars spent on email marketing. So the first place I recommend folks figuring out how to leverage AI in terms of marketing, a lot of times it's email marketing. If you can get audience segmentation right, all of a sudden you're able to send 3 or 4 times more emails, which, that 36 to 1 is obviously an appealing number. Then training and onboarding, automating frequently asked questions as the on-ramp to hiring new employees. Role-playing scenarios is a way that you can leverage the technology for new hires. And then feedback analysis, and managers using ChatGPT or similar technologies to effectively improve their hiring processes, in terms of onboarding the employee and retaining employees. So that's just at a glance. I know that there's a lot to cover here, but wanted to give you some idea as to how you can make those differences. So now we'll talk more about how AI works for efficiency. So you'll see 3 stars here. The stars basically outline where a user is doing something, and any step you don't see a star is where it's ChatGPT doing the work in the background. So I've linked an article here, and these slides will be available after the presentation. This is from Zapier, how to use ChatGPT, a walkthrough that is very helpful, was really helpful for me when I was starting to learn how to use the tech. And then there's also best use cases for different technologies. So there's really right now, there's ChatGPT, there's Google Bard, there's Bing's tool, and there are a few more, Jasper AI is popular, but they all do different things better or worse. So understanding that landscape, I've tried to give you some idea here of what works best depending on the scenario. So starting off, we have accessing ChatGPT. So accessing ChatGPT looks like going to chat.openai.com. When we move on to the examples, I recommend that you can follow along with me on the site and enter in your own prompt as you see fit. But accessing is as simple as chat.openai.com. And if you have an account, log in. If you don't, you can sign up. It'll prompt you to do that. Once you've done that, it's about initiating the conversation. You will see a screen similar to this one if you're on mobile. Importantly, this is the paid version, but you'll see this input field down here, send a message. And that's really where where the sausage gets made, so to speak. That's where you're going to be entering in your prompt, and you'll want to remember the structure that I previously suggested, which we'll revisit shortly. But that 3-part structure is going to be a big help when you're actually typing your responses out. So an action, a framework, and specifications. Write a blog post intro paragraph for the differences between organic and non-organic vegetables, okay? And I hit send. So from there, it's on ChatGPT to process the user input and then to generate a response. So typically this happens relatively quickly if you're not familiar, and then it moves to displaying a response to the user. So ChatGPT is very good at moving quickly, as most AI chatbots are. And so it's usually a matter of seconds before you start seeing text display on the screen. And then it's a matter of continuing the conversation. If the prompt output wasn't what you wanted, then you're dialoguing with the AI chatbot to get a better output in terms of what you're seeking. So we'll talk more about that shortly. But for now, in terms of giving you an idea of the steps that go into getting an output and using the technology, this is really how I understand it, and how ChatGPT, OpenAI, how it's communicated to the mass adopters of this technology. Okay, now for my video wants to get started a little early. Now for the fun stuff, so to speak. So we're starting with a very complicated prompt, and we're going to be working toward a less complicated prompt. So to begin with, let's see here. We'll talk about the 3 steps I outlined previously. We have an action, we have a framework, and we have specification. So the action is in blue, the purple is the framework, the pink is the specification. So implement strategies and provide step-by-step instructions. That's our action. The framework is on how to implement upselling, cross-selling, and downselling techniques. And then the specifications, I won't read all this, I'll spare you that much. But the specifications are really, for those kind of defining details for Dane Buy Local, a Wisconsin nonprofit whose mission is, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we would build out this sort of prompt. Now, importantly, at the end of this, you'll see, more information about Dane Buy Local is available at www.danebuylocal.com. If you have ChatGPT or with web browsing, one of the benefits of the paid technology is that you can input a URL and it will visit the URL, read the page, and basically incorporate the information it found on the page in its response to you. So it's a way of kind of saving yourself that time surfing the web that it would otherwise take. And if we play the response here, we can see that I put it in and it's spitting it out very quickly. So again, I will spare you from, seeing all of this spelled out. If you are interested, it's as easy as once you get the slides, copy and pasting on your own, and you'll see something similar. But again, I want to revisit the point that I do not recommend, you can copy, you can paste, but don't distribute without functioning as that human filter between, AI generated words, words that were generated by an artificial intelligence chatbot, and the world of humans, let's say. Okay, good. So that is our kind of most complicated example that we'll be discussing. So example number 2 is just a press release. I mentioned this previously. Businesses and nonprofits are contending, they're trying to figure out how to leverage this technology. One of the easiest ways, one of the easiest prompts to engineer and to get a boilerplate for that can have the biggest immediate impact on your small business, your growing business or nonprofit, is a press release. So the action here is write, the framework is press release, and the specifications are for an upcoming event hosted by Dane Buy Local about increasing efficiency with AI. Then use the below event description or the link. So depending on whether you have the free service or the paid service, again, as I previously mentioned, what I'll do, if I'm not using the paid service where I can browse the web, I recommend really just copy and pasting text from a landing page, a relevant landing page, be it a services page or an about page. Oh, I mean, it's not super important that we see how it generates the response, but it's spitting out the response. We would take this, we would put it in our press release template, we would revise it, make the necessary changes, and we could get it out the door a little bit faster. And then last, but certainly not least, is the fun one, write a Shakespearean sonnet about the benefits of being a member of Dane Buy Local. So this is a fun one. This is kind of, a way to just spice things up a little bit. Maybe it's, content generation that you want to send out on social. Maybe it's something else, but we can play this quickly. I will not be reading the entire Shakespearean sonnet. That is something I will spare myself from. But I will read one stanza so we can just see that, like, oh, okay, it's pretty good for taking all of 5 seconds to complete. So let us pledge with hearts and minds aligned to honor Dane Buy Local, and thus find that by supporting local far and wide, we build a better world side by side. So, I'm not saying it's going to win a Nobel Prize. I'm not saying it's going to win any literary awards, but it's a useful iteration for getting us over the first hump of getting that first draft done, which is in so many ways what really hinders lightweight teams, is getting that first draft completed. So some bonus tips I want to mention for prompt engineering, some useful phrases in a step-by-step manner, and expanding on that. Imagine you're a blank expert. If you're working to write a business plan for a venture you want to create, imagine you're a business planning expert, and then, continue with your prompt. Tell the chatbot to use bullet points, to be specific, so on and so forth. Context in all caps, the chatbot will immediately understand, this is supporting context as opposed to the information in and of itself. Okay, so taking that next step with AI. So I really want to, I hope that if nothing else, this made you a little bit more curious. This gave you some confidence in terms of, your ability to engage with the technology, because I really, really recommend that you start tinkering, that you be creative or not so creative, because where we're at right now, to bring this back to what Colin said previously, as well as Mark Cuban's tweet, we're in the early aughts of this technology. And so learning how to leverage it now is going to better position you, your business, your nonprofit. In terms of making that happen, education and resources, I recommend starting with the free stuff. Start with YouTube for lengthier content, and TikTok if you really want kind of the micro snippets. So in terms of free, those are the platforms that I would go to. If you're looking for paid, there's a ton of people selling courses out there for how to use the technology. In terms of harnessing AI's potential, I would focus again on harnessing it now, because even if you start today, even if you start next month, if you start 3 months from now, you're still going to be an early adopter. And this is technology that is going to be around for a very long time. I'm not saying it is just good or just bad. It's a gray area, but familiarizing yourself with it now, I think is the right course of action. So with that, I want to thank you, Dane Buy Local, Colin, and the team. I want to thank everybody for bearing with me. I know the technology can be a lot to wrap your head around and work with, but I appreciate your patience and your listening and you being here. So hopefully it was helpful. And now we can open it up to some questions. If you have any questions that I'm not able to answer, I'll add in as a last point. This is my contact information. I will get back to you if I don't have an answer right now. So thank you.
So thank you, Sam, for covering that information. If anyone has any questions, you just take yourself off mute and speak up. Maybe just one to get us started here. You talked about automatic customer support on the website. And for Dane Buy Local, Jeff is here on the call with us now. So he's probably interested in this as well. Is there a way for myself as a user to find out what questions have been asked and answered by ChatGPT or whatever program you plug into. Can I find out afterwards what has happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are, in terms of specificities with different applications and describing how exactly you would go about doing that, it is dependent on what you're using to integrate ChatGPT with. The short answer is yes. If you pick an A player in the space to develop that chatbot and get it on your site, you would have access to that data, in terms of what questions have been posed. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great.
The hesitation I have with that concept is I don't want to lose the personal connection with people, but the way that it answers, at least in the text material that I've received, is pretty personable. For many of you, you know that I have a retail store that I run outside of Dane by Local, my other hat that I wear, called Kylie's Gift Cottage in Middleton. And last weekend, we did a doggy ice cream social. So we have a new line of ice cream that's specific for dogs. And so I input into ChatGPT to write a press release and keep it fun, and that I would send it out. And just immediately it came out with a very clever press release with lots of doggy puns in it. It was maybe a few too many, so I had to take some of them out. But it was very cute, and there were 4 or 5 places that actually picked it up and published it, just word for word. So it's pretty slick, and I spent, including sending out the press release, maybe a half an hour on it at the most. And before that would have taken me 3, 4, 5 hours of slaving and writing and rewriting, and it would have not been nearly half as the quality that I got out of ChatGPT. So, okay, other questions or comments from anyone?
I have a question and a comment.
Yeah.
First, Sam, that was great. Thank you, because this gave
Thanks,
me
Rebecca.
a really nice overview of what I'm dealing with without too much in the weeds where my brain explodes. So you did a really good job
Great.
of an overview there. I have used ChatGPT, and 2 comments. One, I've used it for grant writing. Not that it can write the whole grant, but when you have just those repetitive questions over and over and over
Right.
again. And I did a test. I found the information I wanted. It took me 2 days of going down rabbit holes to get what I was looking for. And then, so I knew what was out there, and I knew what it should say. I asked ChatGPT the question. In like 30 seconds, it came back with everything I found, plus one concept that I hadn't even thought of that was marvelous. And just supporting what you were saying, make sure those human eyes look at it, because I did change a few words here and there. There was one item I took out and things like that. But just in terms of efficiency, 2 days versus 30 seconds, that's not even a contest. And as a creative writer, I'm a little offended by AI, because I think, but it can't do what my mind can do, and it can't. However, in any business, when you look at the volume of work you produce, how little of it is creative writing versus just like the press releases, the getting stuff out. And you have opened my eyes to lots of other ways to use this, and I will be on it this afternoon. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Rebecca. I appreciate it. I wanted to add to your point. I was in a meeting recently with an attorney, a lawyer, a popular lawyer in the state of Wisconsin, who had mentioned that he didn't even know the name of ChatGPT, but he referred to it as chat, and he said we couldn't have predicted that a few months ago that this chat would come on the scene, and it could do in 30 seconds what it takes one of my paralegals, highly educated paralegals, 4 or 5 hours to do. So you know, the ways in which the technology is being used is like, it's cross-functional, it's across different industries. And as a creative writer myself, I 100%, I feel very similarly offended by the technology, but yeah, it isn't to say it's better in
There
every
was
way,
a story,
but yeah.
and I should know where this was, but I can't remember, about a young lawyer who used, I'm not sure if it was chat, but used AI to, for all his legal points in defending someone in court, and went in and had all the cases cited as lawyers do in court, right? You do supporting cases. And AI made up every one of them. Not one of the cases was real. And the opposing lawyer just slaughtered him. So again, those human eyes, you know, yes, it's awesome, but double check and,
Right.
you know, verify what it says and use it with a sort of a critical eye. But man, for a time saver, it's a pretty awesome.
Definitely.
Any other questions out there as we get to the end of our hour here?
I do have a question. So I've used Chat GPT, but I was intrigued with what you said about training and maybe some frequently asked questions from the staff. Do you have any suggestions for apps or tools that function like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a couple of things that come to mind immediately. One, and it would probably be better if I followed up with you after, because it would give me some time to do digging in terms of the specific industry you're working in, whether it's business or nonprofit, and then kind of more granular from there, because technically it could be something as simple as just inputting information about your company or organization into a chat and then basically handing over the keys to your workforce or supporting staff and saying, you can ask away. Conversely, if you wanted to build something that was more like a functioning chatbot as it exists on, say, a website, there's a little more technical, technicalities behind the scenes that kind of go into play, which is why I mentioned, it would probably be best if I followed up after. I could give you a
Yeah.
better, more in-depth example.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I tried to take a day off. I own a restaurant. I tried to take a day off on Sunday and I got 6 texts from my staff and none of them were critical. They were more, what should I do type questions. And I'm thinking if I were to just come up with these scenarios and put them in a library and Chat GPT or some AI tool, my staff could go to that and say, in this scenario, what should I do?
Definitely. Yeah. And now we're getting into software as a service technology and like what could be used as a tool that can seriously benefit, restaurant owners and people who run restaurants. So give me some time. I'll do some digging for that specific use case. And, like I said, if you just shoot me an email, I can have something for you. Can't make any promises in terms of like, it'll be one day, but
Sure. Yep. No problem.
sometime definitely.
Okay, so we have time maybe for one more question.
I guess ethically, I think it's just to be the person in the room that says it. Ethically, it really worries me from being a Dane by local employee. A lot of what we do is try and support businesses as they're having trouble finding employment. And what does good employment look like? So many people need jobs. So, there's just so much around employment. The idea of, I'm not necessarily question here, just saying like, the idea of replacing people with AI seems like the wrong option. And I know that that's not what you're saying, but I also want like that conversation. I've been some really interesting stuff going on in policy, government, regulate it. I'm super curious to see where all that's going to go. I think avoiding it because I don't like it doesn't seem like a good choice either. So I appreciate you bringing this to us very much so, because I know that's not the answer either.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that into the conversation and creating space for that, Megan, because it is really important that we talk about it, because there are going to be jobs that are automated away. One of the reasons why I feel so strongly about communicating the value of this technology in a way that isn't too in the weeds is because I feel strongly that while it will likely, there is AI technology that will automate away jobs, it will also create new jobs. And there are ways where people, especially early adopters who figure out how to use it for their business, can better position themselves. So that unfortunately, this is just, kind of what we're talking about, so that, as, jobs get automated away, they can just kind of be positioned at the forefront of that. So it's not an easy conversation to have by any stretch of the imagination. Unfortunately, the technology, for better or worse, is here to stay. And so figuring out how we can empower folks from all walks of life and communities to use it to, professional and personal ends, I think is, it's at least at the forefront of my mind and something I care about, really, like kind of why I'm here now. So I do think it's important, though. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam, for your presentation today, taking the time to meet with us and put this material together. Was very informative. And, it just scratches the surface, obviously, as far as what's to come with AI and that whole technology there. So just so everyone's aware, Lenica is going to be sending out a copy of this recording and a copy of the slides from Sam's presentation so that you can review this later and share it with others if you want. That's certainly fine to do as well. And of course, Sam's contact information is in there, so you can reach out to him directly if you've got other questions or want to take advantage of their services that they offer at Marketing. That would be great as well. So thanks everyone for coming today and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.